All right.
Everybody get in.
How dare you interrupt? What?
Are you gonna sit there?
Yeah, I'm fine. Look, you can see. Look at my voice is spiking there. So, okay. It's all good.
I guess I'll start again.
Carry on, Nedu.
Hello? Hello?
That's okay. We'll just use that as the intro anyways.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, we really bungled this one, guys. That's okay.
Actually, Garry just did, but...
Alright, go for it.
No worries. It's all good. Welcome to KitaCast, episode 22. That's right. 22 days, episodes, weeks. We're fine. Speaking and not knowing how to count right here is Nedu. To my right, we got...
I'm Garry.
Hello. And...
Hello.
Is that some sort of... No, I'm not gonna go there.
Oh my god.
And I'm Dan.
Yes, and then we also have Dan. So, this week we're going to talk a little bit about episodic content, DLC, and maybe sprinkle in a little bit of pre-orders. I feel like that's a whole other topic on its own, but we'll kind of see where we
These
go.
are each a topic on their own,
Yeah.
but we will have to hammer through and just say our bit on it.
Oh, for sure. In fact, I'm sure we'll come back to this at some point. But the main reason I kind of want to talk about this is I'm not the biggest fan of this series. In fact, actually, now that I think about it, I've never actually played a Hitman game.
Never?
No,
Clearly
I
you're not a
haven't.
fan of the series.
I think it's one of those things where I'm like, there's a really fascinating games, but I've never like actually played one. It's weird. But so just recently Square Enix announced, or at least they actually canceled the pre-orders on the PlayStation 4 version of the upcoming Hitman game, and they took it off the PlayStation Store. And basically this week they kind of spoke about it, and they're like, now the game is actually going to be released as episodic content. So the game's going to launch on March 11th, but it will basically only have like the prologue mission and one location, which will be Paris, at the cost of $15. So I'm just going to really quickly read a couple paragraphs from this story that was from Polygon talking about this. Let's see. So Hitman will get its next location, Italy, in April, and another, Morocco, in May. Square says IO Interactive will then deliver regular monthly content updates, including 3 additional locations, Thailand, the US, and Japan, until the season concludes in Japan later in 2016. And then, there'll be additional planned content throughout the weeks and monthly updates and stuff like that. So the other paragraph I'm just going to read a little bit here is Hitman's intro pack, which contains the prologue and Paris level, will be sold, as I said, for $15. Additional locations will cost $10. Hitman fans can buy the full game, which includes the full year's worth of content, for $60. Disc-based version of the game will ship during the end of 2016. So, interesting stuff. Fans were either pleased or annoyed by this, depending on... there you go.
I honestly can't think of any fan that would be pleased to hear that the game that they just pre-ordered, they put money into, they spent money, they gave money to Square Enix for a game that they said was basically ready. Hey, you guys can buy this, you can pre-order it right now. And then all of a sudden, we're going to have to, split that up a little. You'll get it over the year.
And so close to launch as well.
Yeah, that's the thing. That pre-orders really just shouldn't exist. They really shouldn't be a thing. Pre-order, not just for shit like this, but just pre-orders in general. You just coughing up a bunch of money right at the start for something that was going to get made anyways is ridiculous. It's one thing to have a Kickstarter because basically you need that initial investment to get said project going. But another thing, like someone like Square Enix, who's one of the biggest AAA developers and have some of the biggest titles in the industry, and you have to give them money ahead of time, and then they just turn around and slap you in the face with this type of news. That is absolute and utter bullshit. I think everyone should have fucking pulled the pre-order and basically just gave them the finger on that because they clearly, they're just screwing with people now. And it's just insane that this can still carry on in this day and age, that they get away with this. That it just shouldn't happen this way. And I can't think of a single person that was happy with it being episodically released because there's no point to it. They should have just said, hey guys, we need to push this back a couple months because we're idiots and we, had too short of a work schedule on this. It's not done yet. Rather than saying, it's going to be episodic, so you can do all this, you can pay up front, you can pay permission, so you can play part of the game, and it'll get finished by the end of 2016. It's like, okay, so you're going to take a game that I was just going to buy, play, and be done with, and now you're going to stretch it over a year because you couldn't finish your product on time.
But that's exactly why they did it, because you just said play and be done with. They don't want you to play and be done with it. They want you to remember it every couple months and keep saying like, oh, I love that game, and keep going back to it.
Yeah, but
because if you're done with it, you might forget about it by the time the next one comes out.
Yeah, but the other issue with that too is that somebody might, buy into a mission, and then 2 months later they're like, oh yeah, now Italy's out or Japan's out or whatever. The person's like, oh yeah, I played it, it's not whatever. They don't care. They won't fucking buy it then.
Yeah.
At least if you sell a game up front and people buy it, that's it. Like, they've got the game, they can play the whole thing, or they can play as much of it or as little as they want at that point.
Yeah.
But now it's like you're basically just sacrificing parts of the game.
It's almost to the point now though that like, because social media is so rampant and it's so like easy to get your game like shit on right off the bat, if you release a full game and it gets shit on, you're gonna have like no sales for a larger amount of money that you used. Whereas like for Episodic, you've used less money, but people might not buy it, but then you haven't lost as much.
Shall we just dive into the issue that we were discussing before this anyways?
Economics?
No, not economics. The whole fact that, say I'm a huge Hitman fan. I used to be. I used to like Hitman. I'm a big fan of like the most recent ones, but that's neither here nor there. Say I'm a huge Hitman fan. I buy episode 1. Clearly, this game is a bit of a different situation because they were probably almost done it, but they weren't quite finished tweaking everything or leveling everything out and stuff. So they had an almost finished product, so they're going to spread it over this year. But if episodic content becomes the norm for a lot of big AAA developers, the problem that we're going to have is that we're like, oh, hey guys, the newest I don't know, fucking Halo's coming out or something like that. It's going to be episodic. We're going to be like the first chapter now, and we plan the next chapter in like 6 months, and there's going to be some multiplayer add-ons in between, and there's going to be another chapter at Christmas. Like, when you do that kind of thing, somebody's like, oh yeah, everyone's in, like they buy into the first chapter, and then all of a sudden, oh, well this game isn't very good. Nobody buys the second chapter, or very few people buy the second chapter. All of a sudden, do we now hold that AAA dev to their word that they were going to release this game, or if they off the hook for it? Do they not have to finish the game if it just sold poorly? Then all of a sudden the people that wanted to play said game, they get gypped on an end to their game. They sell 2 chapters when they were planning to sell 5, and all of a sudden, oh great, so the people that actually spent money on it, they get to experience a third of the game.
The same could be said for big games though, because like there are a few games that were planned to be more than like 1 or 2 games, and if you don't get your funding for the next one, then they're just gonna they're gonna give up on it.
Yeah, but at least you got to play a full game at that point. It may have left the story on a cliffhanger, but you've still got to experience a full game. Like if I was playing something like I don't know, I'm trying to think. Like Uncharted. If you played Uncharted and you finished the first like 2 levels, and then all of a sudden said, oh, well, it's not making enough money, so we're just not making the rest of it. What do you, like, where do you get off doing that? Like, how can you give money to a third of a project?
Exactly.
And then there's no recourse after that. And that's,
course.
I am absolutely worried that this is what's going to happen if episodic becomes the norm, because there's going to be no way to hold devs accountable for this.
But I don't know if they even should be accountable for a whole game. What's to say?
So they don't have to do their job anymore? They don't even have to
but
make
like
a
they're
full game?
already to the point where they're releasing games that are like unfinished, and then like months later they patch in the finished. Or like Metal Gear Solid 5, not done. It's out.
Yeah, that game
like,
isn't actually complete.
At what point are they like obligated to do this? Because they're using their own money. They're not using Kickstarter money or things like that to put these games out. So if you're not profitable, you're just not going to make the game, right?
It's such a weird thing. Like, one thing I can say, just kind of going back to fans being like happy or not, and you're right, most fans would definitely not be happy. I mean, I have seen comments on Twitter of I guess I would probably say they're a bit of apologists, but kind of saying like, oh, it makes sense that they're doing this for this reason, that reason. So it makes more sense, like money-wise for them and this and that. And like I totally understand that point of view, but I guess for something like Hitman, it seems like an odd choice, specifically because those games tend to be games that are really sprawling. Like, they don't seem to lend themselves to episodic content, because it's not something like a telltale adventure game where they each contain stories and each story picks up from the last one, and then it changes slightly, maybe not that much, but somewhat slightly based on your choices. While this one's more of like a kind of open sandbox idea where you're set into a location. So I guess if they break it up location-wise, sure, but I also fear it may end up like Resident Evil Revelations 2, where the way it's broken up just doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. But again, like that's kind of just, I guess maybe time-wise or whatever, like, or they just cut off there. But I'm, finished playing an episode. I'm like, wait, what? Was that the end?
Yeah.
Like it's
Yeah.
And then what? Then you have to sit there for 2 months, 3 months, 6 months until they finish the next one?
Yeah.
It's just, it is painful. And I mean, again, it's about accountability. And that's why I'm not a big fan of DLC. I'm not a big fan of pre-orders and stuff like that, because people are just spewing money at these devs, and it just shows that they can get away with it because people are just throwing their wallets out there now, no matter what happens.
I don't know, because like, who's to say when a game is done? Like, I know there's a certain endpoint to story, but there's also endpoints to chapters and things like that. So there's like natural breaking points. So if they were like, it requires different development, but if you're smart about it, you can make every episode feel like an entire game in itself. Like, it won't be like a whole 60-hour game. It might be like 4 or 5 hours, but if you're only paying like an eighth of the price of the game, or like a quarter of the price.
But it comes down to the fact that too, if everyone says, oh, that's a cool idea, everyone buys the first episode, and then the second episode doesn't sell at all, what happens? Does the developer have to go and finish that game? Who knows? Like, are they legally obligated to? I don't think they're going to. They're going to be like, it didn't make enough money.
They're definitely not legally obligated.
Yeah.
There's no legal obligation.
So now, again, it's like, so are we going to keep spending $5, $10, $15 on a quarter of a game that just may never exist again?
The thing is, it just depends on how it's received in the general community.
Well, they can fucking receive my ass for it, because it's not how gaming's supposed to be done. The devs, when they're making a game, make a fucking game. And you're right, there's a lot of games being released that are half-baked right now, because it's like, oh, it's a full game. Like, you bought Fallout 4, it was a full game. It had a beginning, a middle, and an end. It had all the content in there and everything. But the problem with it is that they didn't go in and like finish the QA on it. Like they didn't make sure that everything worked properly. So like that's one thing, because the whole game's there. It's just kind of broken here and there. So if they could have taken another month or two to, leave it in the oven a little longer to finish it, that's fine. It's another thing where they're going to be like, okay, well, we're going to give you like the first 2 levels. And then, like, 4 months later, there's a couple more levels, and...
Let's say if they did it like this. What if they didn't tell you that they were only giving you the first 2 levels, but they just released it as a game?
I would be really angry then.
But they released it for, like, $4. So then you play a $4 game, and you're like, oh, that was a fun game. And you don't complain that it's short. It has a beginning, middle, and end. But it's still a game in itself. So, like, every episode could be considered a game if they were developing.
Yeah, but they would have to go the Telltale route, where they have proper... beginning, middle, and end to it. And then...
But that's not to say that they can't do that. Like, it's...
it's not that they can't do that, it's just a lot of the bigger devs aren't going to do that, because a lot of people aren't going to buy into that.
And that's the thing. If people aren't going to buy into it, they're going to have to change their ways to eventually do it that way.
Also, just important to point out that in Square Enix's case, it's largely the publisher, Square Enix, that's doing, not the developers.
Okay, well, yeah, whatever. That's...
It's just because the developers likely don't want to do it like that.
Yeah.
I feel like I should probably point that out.
I don't know. It's just it's a slippery slope that is going to lead to another chaotic scene, just like our current DLC set. Like DLC is a shit show at best right now, and it's all thanks to the goddamn horse armor in Oblivion.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Well, why don't we talk a little bit about DLC anyway? Like, why don't we just go there? So, what do you guys think of DLC in general, and what are some good examples of DLC, and what are some bad examples of DLC?
I think good examples of DLC are anything that actually add new content to the game. And I don't just mean new as in technically it's like, oh, well, he has a new costume or something like that. That's not new content. I mean stuff that makes you go in and play the game again almost as if it was new. So prime example of that is the beautiful stuff that Witcher 3 has been doing.
Yeah.
When you go back into that, you're going into a new realm. Like, you're going into a new part of the world. You're meeting new characters. You have new armor, new weapons, new magic. You are doing another part. You're continuing that story. Like, that is like it's almost like a work of art as far as DLC is considered, and it was free. Like, I'm not saying that DLC has to be free, but if it's free, hey, big bonus on it, especially if it's a really meaty piece of DLC like that. The ones that I don't get are shit like DOA 5 that go and charge, $4 for a costume or $30 for a costume pack for these like certain characters.
Yeah.
I mean that literally add nothing to the game other than showing a bit more skin on the characters. Like they're almost pointless. And then the one that's kind of caught in the middle was like some of the DLC that they had for the Batman Arkham City games, Arkham Knight, like that kind of thing. They have costumes and skins and secondary storylines and stuff like that. Now, they had the right idea with that kind of stuff because I'm a fan of like having some extra costumes and stuff, so that's fine. If they're good enough costumes and they kind of like almost kind of change how your character operates or at least makes them seem like a different character and everything, I'm fine with that as long as the price point is all right. And they did it kind of right too with having different locations, playing a different character as another part of the story. The problem is that they were lackluster at best. They barely did anything for the actual storyline, and they were really short and they were overpriced. So they had the right idea going in that direction, telling other parts of the story, letting you play other characters, but they did it in the wrong way. So that's kind of that middle area. So like Witcher 3 did it right, DOA does it wrong, and Batman somewhere kind of in the middle as an example. So, but I mean, DLC is DLC. It's everywhere. So there's thousands and thousands of different examples of it.
Well, for sure.
I would probably say that I like the ones that do add a lot to the story, but my bigger issue with DLC is if it's like, I like it if they've spent time developing it after the game's already done, and like it's
not
it's
day
like,
one DLC.
Yeah, like day one DLC makes no sense because it could be on the disc or it could
was
be available.
on the disc for a lot of
and that's essentially just a lockout of something that they've already made, instead of something that like you're paying for them to. Like, there's something they made afterwards. They spent some extra time working on it after they made the game. So, like, the Bloodborne DLC is really good.
Because the point of DLC ultimately is to make you come back, think about the game, and enjoy playing it again.
It's extra content.
It's not to give you extra content day one to get more money out of you. That's not the way to fucking use DLC.
That's my issue with DLC. So, those ones and... ones that I think are done very poorly are fucking season passes. Because there's where accountability is. Because you buy a season pass, but you, like, if they don't release anything that year, then you've just paid for nothing. Whereas, like, if they release, like, 6 costumes, it's like, oh, I got 6 costumes for $60.
Yeah.
So it's like, that's where the accountability comes in for DLC. I don't think people should be accountable for it if it's, like, not... If they haven't paid for anything yet.
No, because then at that point you at least have control over what you're buying.
Yeah.
Like, again, DOA, I love that game. Like, I love it as a fighting game. But I don't buy any of the extra costumes simply because they're overpriced for what you get. Because it is literally just a costume. But it's not so much that they have a season pass. It's just they have...
they have season passes.
Oh, do they?
Yeah,
okay,
they have 2 season passes now.
Yeah.
Okay, so... I mean, but again, they're costumes, so they're probably going to make them anyways.
Yeah.
But, I mean, when you go in, it's like you can buy a single costume if you really like that one, or you can buy a costume pack and you get those costumes. Yeah. But yeah, a season pass is completely different. So yeah, if you buy into that and all of a sudden they don't release something for a year, or they're just like, oh, we don't have money to do this. It's like, well, where the fuck did my money go then?
To be honest, though, I actually don't mind how DOA does their, like, downloadable content stuff. Because, like, aside from like two or three big things about it, like the whole season pass garbage, or the whole like, if you don't download costumes, it's really invasive in the game because it shows you all the costumes that you essentially could be downloading, and then it's like you can't use this costume like that.
There's actually I
hate that,
and that's the thing is that's the kind of like either update ability or on disc content. One that's really, really bad for that too is a lot of racing games. Need for Speed, Forza, like those type of games. Because you'll be sitting there in the car shop and you'll go over and all of a sudden there's 10 cars that are grayed out. But they're sitting there. Their models are rotating in-game, in front of you. It has all their stats, their price, everything. But they're just grayed out. It's like, oh, we have to go to our store and buy this and for your money.
And they like update it into there to make it so
sometimes they're right on disc day one. Like Need for Speed, I can't remember. It was like a few years ago. So it was like one of the one of the older ones now, but that one was literally like, we bought it day one, went into the store, and there was like all these grayed out cards. It's like, oh great, so those things are physically on my disc right now, and I can't use them. I just paid $70 for this fucking game.
And it's frustrating too, because they show it to you for that reason specifically.
Yeah, and they keep
so
showing
they
it to
entice
you just to make you want to buy.
And it's not just like the taunting of like, oh, it's here, come buy it. It gets in the fucking way. You're right. It's invasive. It's like, oh, I have to sift through all this shit that I can't physically buy.
Yeah.
But the good thing about that type of DLC is it doesn't change the game for people who don't buy it. You're playing a fighting game where it's like you need to have really tweaked like systems. So if you're getting a costume that's like adding attack power and shit like that, it's like then that's pay to win. And
that's a whole nother level though. That's pay to win DLC.
That's what I like.
And we can talk about that after too.
And that's what I like about how DOA does it. Aside from that, whatever.
Well, they're just costumes.
They're just costumes. You buy them if you want them.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, for me, like I totally agree with that. However, it does bother me a little bit for the case of things like DOA and Street Fighter. Well, Street Fighter not so much. I think that they started doing DLC costumes in 4, but for games where in the past those costumes were unlockable, and now we have to pay for them, like that's something that sometimes bothers me.
Yeah, I miss that.
Well, yeah, exactly,
like,
right?
Hey, you played Super Nintendo or Genesis or 64 or PlayStation 1. It's like there was a reason to go back and play levels and beat them in a certain time or do them in a certain way because you were unlocking this stuff. You were unlocking cheats, you were unlocking costumes, you were unlocking characters. Now it's just like pay. And that's the only way to get any of this extra shit now.
Yeah, like it's one of the worst examples for me for DLC this year has been, of course, Metal Gear Solid 5. And again, I still haven't finished this game. That's messed up for me because I love Metal Gear Solid. So one of the things that really bothers me is, well, first of all, there is horse armor in that game, DLC horse armor. Yeah, I laughed so hard. Yeah, there is. I laughed so hard I almost cried.
I think it's horse gear, though, isn't it? It's not really armor.
Well, I mean, it is actual armor because it does have some stats to it, I believe.
Oh, okay.
But it's frustrating. And then they also had a whole bunch of costumes you can buy, and one of the costumes was Snake in a Tux, which drives me up the wall because that is not something you buy. You unlock Snake in a Tux that you always have.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden something you pay for. So that game that kind of bothers me. It's like the DLC stuff for stuff that in the past would be stuff that you unlock. And again, I can understand that games cost a shit ton of money, so I can understand them being like, well, we can make a little bit of extra money on this, and it doesn't affect the game that much. So I'm kind of 2 months of it, but it's just like that niggling thought
I would almost argue that it does affect the game a lot, just because like it gets rid of a lot of mystery of like unlocking things, you know.
Oh, okay. Well, I was talking about what you were saying earlier about how the costumes don't affect like fighting and stuff like that. That's what I.
So the tuxedo doesn't do anything in this game.
I don't actually know.
Because it used to do stuff in the other games.
I don't actually know. That was the other thing. Like I was like a lot of the DLC costumes in that game. I don't actually know what they do because I actually didn't even read it. I was so annoyed that I was like, I don't actually want to be I don't want to be spying these things. So I'm just not even.
Because costumes are one thing if they don't do anything, but if they have special abilities, I mean, in that game it doesn't really matter because you'd be using them in single player. So it's like the computer doesn't care if you cheat or use extra stat boosting costumes and stuff. The part that really bugs me about Metal Gear Solid is that part of their DLC is basically extortion.
Yeah, with the
base
insurance.
insurance.
That's the other thing about
insurance. Game. Air quotes. It's extortion.
Yeah. Insurance something that you do not actually own.
Yeah, exactly. It's quite frustrating. That's another aspect of the DLC in that game that I find incredibly annoying because the insurance for your mother base, things getting stolen, and it's also based on whether player characters decide to invade you or not. So it's stuff that's completely out of your that is quite out of your control. Like you can stop them if you're good enough, but if you're not, or if you're not able to get into your base in time, or if you're not playing the game at the time, you're kind of screwed.
It's like if I want to play DayZ, I will go fucking play DayZ. I'm playing Metal Gear goddamn Solid. I don't want other people invading my game and taking my shit because guess what? I'm not a fucking 12-year-old kid sitting in a basement that gets to play all weekend, okay? Like, it doesn't work that way anymore. We're adults, we have lives, we have other shit to do, like record podcasts, and I don't have time to guard my goddamn mother base, and I'm not paying Konami a goddamn cent to protect my virtual stuff.
Yeah. That's frustrating. Like, that seems insane to me.
Yeah, that's rough.
But some of my a couple examples of DLC that I really did like. I'm also not a fan of the season pass. Perfect example of why is actually Arkham Knight, where they've been
'cause
releasing content.
they didn't even deliver on what they said that they were going to have, though.
No, that's exactly it. Like it's just there's no guarantee that you're going to get something that's worth it. Even for games that I really like, I actually don't buy DLC that often. I quite rarely do. There's only a couple examples a few times that I have, and luckily for me, I've been pretty lucky. But granted, I always wait till it's out so I know if it's any good or not. The best examples that I've had have been Bloodborne, which I still haven't finished. Last of Us with the DLC focusing on Ellie, that was awesome.
That one.
Oh, it's really good. It's highly worth it for sure. And Borderlands, which I didn't even play all of the DLC for Borderlands 2, because a lot of them weren't that great, but there's a lot of them that are awesome.
They're doing it right, though.
They were. Like, I mean, again, besides the season pass, they were doing it right.
Now it's a season pass.
Well,
But, like,
no,
the
that-
first Borderlands.
The first Borderlands... Okay, well, Borderlands 2 had a season pass. Borderlands 1, you're right, didn't. But they do it right because they do it after the game is released, and they're very sizable chunks of storyline.
It adds a lot of... Well, okay, the arenas don't.
Well, that's why I never bought
The arenas
those.
don't, but the story part, they do. They were
Yeah.
entertaining. They were well written. They didn't feel just stapled on everything. Like, they were actually like full-blown chapters that were a lot of fun to play.
For some people, the arena is like another challenge. So, like,
And
it's
there are
it's
a lot of
gameplay
people that
difference.
do like
some
those
people
kind
like
of
them.
things, but yeah, it just kind of reminded me of like just online shooters, and I could just care less about that.
Yeah. No, the DLC, like the actual areas, added something different, like a new location with new types of enemies, with new types of guns, sometimes new types of currency, depending on what the situation was. So there was some actual sizable chunk of gameplay there, and it felt really worth it. So, and then of course there's like the DLC characters with Gage and the Psycho, right, who added a very different way to play play. Like,
Were they both free?
Well, Gage was free if you pre-ordered it.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then the Psycho was part of the season pass, I think, if you had got
I think
that.
that's what it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, again, those are. It's not game breaking because you don't really play it online. You're not playing it versus. You get them if you want to use that character. It doesn't, break the game if you don't have them. Because I never got the Krieg. I think is the Psycho.
Oh yeah.
I never got Krieg. But I got Gage because my wife loves that game, so she wanted a character she could play, and she really liked that one. So we bought that one, and it enhanced the game for her because it was the character she wanted to play, and that's fine. But yeah, if you had this character that was like, oh, if you don't buy this character, you can't get to this other place and do these things and get this other gun and everything. Then it's like, well, again, that just gets back to extortion because it's like, well, you're breaking half the game. Or you're breaking a part of the game because I didn't order this one character or something. Like, yeah. I don't know. It's DLC. It sucks.
Yeah, DLC. I mean, it's going to be a part of gaming going forward. I feel like no matter what we do, I just wish that they'd be a little bit better about it. Again, examples like The Witcher, where there's both paid and non-paid, and like the.
But they did what they said they were going to do right off the start. When the game got the release, they said you're getting 3 free ones.
Yeah,
and then we will have more content after that you will pay for.
Well, I agree. Like that's what I was trying to say. Like they actually were really good about it,
They
and
had
they were
a clear
upfront.
statement of what they were doing.
Yeah, and then there's examples like we talked about this before too, like Splatoon, where it was all basically free, and they were kind of slowly releasing new stuff to change up the game.
I think a cool thing about Splatoon's DLC is because it was all free, it's meant to keep the value of the game up.
Yeah.
So if you buy a new copy of the game, it's still pretty high price.
Absolutely.
Like it never drops to like $20 or $10 like a lot of other games. And that's smart of Nintendo because they could still make 40 on the game.
Yeah, and it's cool
40
too
or 50.
because anytime like there was a new DLC stuff for it, I mean it's similar with other games, but for this, if you've been playing Splatoon for a while and you stop playing, and you frequent video game sites, you'll see on update like, hey, Splatoon added paintbrushes. You're like, oh sweet, I want to try that out and see what it's like.
Yeah.
So it's really good. It's a smart way to keep that game in people's consciousness, right?
And then by the time they have a second one ready, people know about it and are still ready to play it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I don't know if this will come up in any other topics
Sure,
or
go
anything
for
like
it.
that, but could we just rip on Battlefront for a minute?
Please go.
Because we're talking about
Yeah,
that
that's expensive
DLC.
as fuck.
Oh my
Battlefront
God.
is possibly one of the worst, worst like criminal types when it comes to DLC. Because
Yeah.
here's a game that like blew people's minds when they first announced it and showed a trailer for it and stuff because it looked absolutely gorgeous. And then basically when people actually got their hands on it, it was nothing like the original games that got them excited in the first place. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden they were just like, oh, well, it's, here's the game. It's $80. Oh, and hey, here's a season pass that's worth $80 to unlock stuff that's on the fucking disc in the game. And not only that, their fucking DLC is game breaking because it's pay to win. Yeah. Because if you don't get the season pass or you don't buy the DLC, there's a bunch of guns and equipment that your character can't use.
Aren't there a bunch of stages you can't go
there's
to?
There's levels too, but I mean that's one thing. If you can't play in a certain level, the game sticks you with the levels that you have. Mm-hmm. That's fine. You pay extra for the other levels. It's still fucking criminal, but whatever. They charge the right amount for it. I mean, they do it in other games. You buy levels and stuff. The part that bugs me is that it's pay to win because you have all of a sudden your character's gimped because they have certain weapons and certain equipment that they don't have access to. That you are fighting people that actually have those weapons and that equipment. Mm-hmm. How
that's disappointing.
Like where's the justice in that at all? Mm-hmm. You're going to charge $80 for a brand new game, which is just ludicrous. I mean, I fucking hate that price point now. That's the common game price. So I don't buy new games anymore. I can't. It's just impossible to do that now. Yeah. And then $80 for a season, $160 fucking dollars for your complete game that was complete before, and then you went back in with a fucking screwdriver and tore it all apart again, and then just sold it back to us in tiny chunks. It's like, oh my god, just rage-inducing.
It bothers me a lot because I haven't actually played the latest Battlefront. I mean, I've read a lot about it, and I know a good amount about what kind of content's in there. I played Battlefront 2 the other day, and I'm just like, I feel like there's more to this game.
There was, because they didn't charge you $160 for the whole game.
All game development, there's more to it.
Well, yeah, right? Absolutely. It that's absolutely true. And again, I know we were all, a lot of, like, I guess myself included, but a lot of us were excited because this is a developer like DICE, right? That's done the Battlefield. There we go. I was like Battlefront. That can't be. It's something front. They've done the Battlefield series, but I mean, my issue was just not even like I didn't expect this amount of cutting up, but my concern was mostly like the level design, just because the levels in Battlefront 2 were really fascinating. Like, they were really interesting, and I know there's like inner workings of some of the base and stuff like that, but I've seen Battlefront, and when you're outside, it just looks like you're in a field shooting guys across. Like, the level design doesn't look nearly as interesting.
Yeah, the main issue is that video games have become so big that they've turned into Hollywood, and they're ready to implode at this point because they charge themselves too much money to do everything, and then they pass that on to the customer. Because what exactly is happening right now is that even 10 years ago, 15 years ago, when you bought a game, you were buying a game for $60 to $70, and that was it. Like, that was the common price. They would put it out. It would be a whole game. There was no DLC. That was the game. The person making, or the team making the game was said, we have to make a good game because we want people to buy it. They're going to go out and they're going to see that it's good and they're going to pay that price for it. And developers or producers or whatever, they were scared of the customer because if they didn't buy it, they weren't getting their money. Now the customers are scared of the company because the company can just shit in a bag, call it Star Wars, and then sell it to us piece by piece, and we're just like, oh yes, feed us more. We'll just throw money at you now. And it's just like it's become the complete opposite now. They can just make whatever shit they want, make it as flashy as hell. And then all of a sudden, people are going to pay $120 to like play the whole experience that should have cost $40 in the first place.
Yeah, well, I mean, look at that marketing leading up to that game. It looked fantastic.
Oh yeah, it looked great.
I mean, it's Star Wars, it's like Disney, it's EA, it's there's
good pedigree.
That is pedigree. That is some of the biggest money you will find in the industry behind that. And obviously, it worked. People bought into it. Not me, because that is horseshit. People didn't stop to think for a second, what am I actually paying for? What am I actually buying? What is this DLC? What's this season pass? They just saw Star Wars, and they were just like, take my money.
Yeah, I mean, I was definitely wanting to do that too. I mean,
I was going to buy it. And I I saw that you couldn't do a lot of things without the season pass, and I'm like, you know what? I just will wait.
Well, that's the thing.
Wait till the price of the game goes down to like $10 or $20.
And basically, what they lost from the older games too was this fact that there was no individuality anymore. Because in the old game, you played a role. You were, different types of characters, different loadouts. They had vehicles on the field that you could jump into. Now it is literally a first-person shooter on a battlefield, and you're picking up icons.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You are not like special or different or anything in any way. You are just a drone with a gun, and sometimes you get to fly a snowspeeder or an X-wing or a TIE fighter or something. Like, that's it. That's the whole fucking game. Mm-hmm. They took all the magic and all the awesomeness out of it.
And that's what I feel DLC does. Like he was saying earlier with it doesn't, like, costumes and stuff. Like, when you have costumes to unlock in a game, there's mystery to that. There's fun and replayability to it.
You replay the game to earn that stuff.
And now it's all DLC, so you don't really have, like... you have less motivation to play again or keep playing.
And that's one of the things. Some companies, it's very few and far between, but some companies will be like, here, pay $10, get an early unlock. I have no problem with that, because if you have the money to spend on that, rather than the time to spend on it, go for it. You unlock that shit.
You unlock everything code, $10. I don't mind that.
You want to pay $10, $20 to unlock everything in the game day one, fucking go for it. Spend your money on that. But don't take that option away from me if I want to spend time to unlock all that.
I think Smash Bros. Did that.
What?
The new Smash Bros? Or was it all unlocked right off the bat?
Oh, no, you still had to unlock a bunch of stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, that game kept me busy.
Did they have the unlock code that you could like pay like $5 or $10 and have
honestly,
everything
actually, I don't know. That's a good... I didn't even
that would be the type of game that it fits in. Because some people buy that and want to play it immediately.
One of the ones that was like that was, I think, Need for Speed Pro Street. Because there was like, hey, here's these 10 extra cars that you're going to get in the game. But right now, you can pay $5 and unlock them all. And I was just like, well... No, I'm going to race. I'm going to have fun with my game. I'm going to replay it. I'm going to earn those cars. Yeah. I'm not just going to give you guys $5 for something that's already on the disc.
Yeah, that's what I hate with DLC.
Yeah. No, it's certainly troublesome. Like, Anywho, I guess the other thing is, like I'm not going to get into too much more.
My chest fucking hurts right now.
I'm so angry. I'm not going to get into too much because I don't want us just to be the Battlefront podcast. But I was also disappointed that, people shit on the prequels for good reason. However, I did miss the inclusion of prequel era combat because it was kind of cool having the Republic clones versus the Federation droids because they were played so differently. And it was cool because again, you had to choose different class based on what was going on. Droidekas are very one kind of situation. However, what you have 2 or 3 droidekas roll up on a bunch of clones that are unprepared and they're fucked. Like, it's really cool. So that was something. Again, there's just such a lack of variety.
Yeah, and that's more uniqueness. Like, you roll and roll instead of playing like random fucking first person shooter soldier doing everything.
Yeah, you're just a soldier. You grab a gun and a jetpack or a health pack or something like that, and they're just like push out the door. You're in a field, kill as many things as you can. I don't know.
Yeah,
you just took all the fun out of it.
Yeah, it's kind of disappointing. The next one. Kind of question is just like, are you a fan of episodic content? Why or why not? And do you feel that it's more or less appropriate depending on what type of game it is?
I think as long as it is said, straight and upfront that it is episodic. Like Telltale, they not only have their own type of game style, but they're good at what they do. They're good at writing. They're good at they've basically invented their own genre at this point. Like, I know that they had point and click adventures before and everything, but Telltale does something different. Like, it just feels different, a little more interactive. They're always well written. They're always funny. Like, they just do such a good job with their games. And I guess it's because they obviously put all their power into doing that one thing. Like, that's their style of game. So they don't try to stray from that. And that's what they do. They do episodic content. They never fuck around with it. They charge a good price for it, and it's done. So I think if a company is going to do that, they have to have a clear goal. They have to be straight and upfront with people saying, this is what it's going to be, this is our schedule, this is how it's going to go, and this is the price. And never fuck with that. Because if you do, people aren't going to buy it. It's going to crash and burn, and you're going to fail at it. So, so episodic content, it's not that I hate it, it's just that basically anyone that's tried to do it except for Telltale so far has fucked it up royally. And I just don't want it to become any kind of a norm, and it's getting kind of scary because there are more people uttering those words, episodic content.
I'm not too opposed to it in any way, as long as like each game is individual and playable and like they're fun. Like if say, and reasonable price tags. If it's not like $25 each game, I'll be like, that's kind of high, because I like it when it's episodic, but the whole price of the game doesn't exceed the price of a big blockbuster game. So if you have like a 5-episode game that exceeds $80 for a retail game, then I'm not gonna buy that.
Because I mean, it's just like, it's okay. There's 5 chapters. They're gonna charge $19.99 per chapter. Boom, you have a $100 game right there.
Because that's obviously them just being like, I want more money from each individual part. But like,
it's like, I don't care if that game takes you 10 hours to finish or 200 hours to finish. I'm not paying $100 for it.
But aside from that, it's like, if it's fun and it's good, I don't really mind too much. Like, it helps the developers, it helps the publishers, it helps really anybody to release in that fashion.
Yeah, the only part I'm worried about is that, again, everyone kind of catching wind of episodic content. I don't want everything to become episodic content, because all of a sudden...
Some things don't make sense.
Big developers are all of a sudden going to be like, oh, well, we can do this, we change the schedule around, we can make this much more money off of hacking it up this way, and they just do all that down to a science stuff where they wrench the most money they can out of the public to give them the least amount of content that they can. And that's what I'm really worried about happening, because I know there's going to be bigger companies that are going to start doing that, and it really is going to ruin the whole factor. Because you're right, there's a lot of games that should never be an episodic game.
Some things just don't make sense. Some things really do, because like, I know you guys, like Hitman was last minute thing, but if you did it per mission and you like each individual mission's almost a non sequitur, like it's by itself, but like you could release little information.
It depends on which game you're playing. Some of them were very story driven, and other ones were just kind of like, hey, this is your mission this time, go kill this guy.
Yeah, because like what they could do is they could release little bits of information in every one and have like a big overarching story, and then like, but each mission is individual, and you pay for each mission if you really want to play them.
Yeah, because one of the other problems too is that I mean, when you have a busy life and everything like that, if you're playing a game, like I've bought a $70 game, and some of them I've never finished, because it's like, you
some
play,
of them I've never touched.
You play 10 hours, 15 hours into this game, and all of a sudden, you know, you get distracted by something else, and then all of a sudden 3 months goes by, and I'm like, I have to start the game over again because I don't remember where I am or how to do anything, and all of a sudden, if all of these big devs are putting out episodic content, all of a sudden you're going to be playing all these like little portions of games here and there and everywhere, and you're never going to remember what you were fucking doing anymore, because everything else is, you're going to be experiencing, you know, 10 or 15 different first chapters of these games, and it's all of a sudden the second chapter comes, it's like, well, I don't remember what was going on, I don't remember where I was, I don't remember how to control this character, I don't remember anything about this fucking game.
Yeah, I think that's just an issue with like how you design that. Because if you design it properly, it's going to remind you how to do these things slowly as you're working into the game, and it'll be a game in itself. So it'll teach you right there.
But I don't want it. I'm just saying I don't want it to happen to all of them, because, you know, again, it's going to be that whole situation. It's just like, oh great, 3 months later, this one's coming out. This, and this are all bringing. Oh, this one has chapter 2. This one has chapter 4. This one is chapter 5. The other one's chapter 5. And then you have to reteach yourself how to play 5 games that month. Like,
I almost think that's to combat what you said, because when you buy like a $70 game and you have to restart it, but like if you get to the end of this episode, you don't have to think about it until the next episode comes out. Yeah, and then it'll teach you how to play in the next episode, and you'll just keep going that way. Like it's a self-sustaining game.
Yeah, but I mean, honestly, let's be honest about this. Once you paid that $70 for that game, they don't care if you finish it or not.
I know, and that's exactly like they're splitting it up, so you will play more of the game.
Not necessarily, because there are certain games I'm just not going to relearn if the thing comes out 4 months later.
Yeah,
believe me, there are games that I've played and I finished. I'm like, I've like gotten halfway through. I'm like, I'm done. I just don't want to play this anymore. All of a sudden, then you have that problem again. It's like, well, I'm not buying the next 3 chapters of this, so hope you guys socked away money to finish this game for other people that do want to play it, because I ain't buying it.
I don't know. I feel like the DLC thing was, or the whole episodic thing was almost to combat the point that people are buying games and they have less time now. So like you can play a shorter game and actually finish something consequential instead of playing like 2-hour tutorial and then getting bored and throwing it away.
It's a slippery slope because
Like-
big game developers, they just go in and again they bring it down to a science. They try to hack it up as much as they can to make the most money for the least amount of work.
Yeah, I don't know. You can't like totally demonize them because they're still making things for your entertainment, right? So, at the very least, like
They're making things for money.
Well, I think I think largely the ones that choose how said games are broken up or what kind of pre-order bonuses there are, or how those things are doled out are largely publishers, and it could depend on a number of things, whether they're trying to see like how can we nickel and dime people as much as we can, or what makes sense for this game to do as to do the best it can given when it's released and what kind of DLC is going to come out afterward, or ways that we think that we can bring this game back to people with the lowest risk. And I think that was the case for like Resident Evil Revelations 2. Because quite honestly, Resident Evil 6 still sold a hell of a lot of copies. Like that game did okay.
game was fucking terrible.
But
it's
they're
terrible,
going
but-
Hollywood style because they're stamping a big name that everyone knows on a product, and then just people will buy it because it's Resident Evil.
well, it was weird. Like Resident Evil Revelations 2 has more in common with like some of the older Resident Evil games than say the newer ones, specifically Resident Evil 4. Because after that, that's when they. I don't think they're going back beyond Resident Evil 4 for good reason. But when it comes to that game. Like, again, this is kind of where I think episodic content can be fine based on what type of game and if it makes sense for the game. And it's hard for me to say because I haven't really played that many episodic games except for said Telltale games. But when it comes to Resident Evil Revelations 2, I really didn't feel like that's a game that should have been broken up. That could either be a result of the way they did it because it felt really weird and abrupt, or also because like I've played a lot of Resident Evil games in the past. They're like these weird complete adventures and they're super strange and have strange puzzles that sometimes iterate upon themselves. So having it broken up feels strange, and it's hard for me to say because I haven't played the whole thing yet. Like I'm still questioning whether I'm going to or not, which is a sad state for me because I really like Resident Evil, and it was kind of while Revelations isn't bad, it's not great. Like I'm playing this and I was like, this is a Resident Evil that I won't want to kill myself while playing, which is a sad standard place to be at. But at the same time, when I finish it, I'm like, do I want to play more of this? Like I really not that interested, but I'd love to play more Resident Evil. Like it so. With this game specifically, like I hope it's not a trend for a game for like these types of games that are usually more classically done in a more complete fashion. Like if it's a different IP or a different type of game and made by Capcom as well, that is an episodic game, maybe I'd be like, okay, I might give it a shot and stuff like that. But if it's more Resident Evil like this, I don't know.
I think like if bigger companies want to go in and start doing episodic content, they are really going to have to rethink a lot of their business models and stuff like that, because their big game business model does not lend itself to episodic content because it's being done completely the wrong way. The problem is that bigger companies like that, they're scared of stepping back and not charging top dollar for a game anymore, whether it takes 100 hours to finish or 5 hours to finish. They feel like we've got to put this amount in at least to make it worth $80 or something like that. Whereas if you go on something like Steam and you buy some kind of indie game, some of those indie games, like you can play for 20 hours and they charge you $12 for the game. Yeah. If a bigger company could step back and say, hey guys, we can make a smaller game for a cheaper price with a big title on it and people are going to pay for it, then that's your episodic content right there. Make a smaller game and charge us less for it. Don't charge us the standard price. There shouldn't be a standard price for a game. That just shouldn't exist, because then everything's held to that value, and it just doesn't work that way. Not every game is equal. Not every game is worth $80. It really isn't. We all know that. We've had experiences where it's just like, wow, I'm done this game already? I bought it 6 hours ago. You just charged me $80 to do that. That's bullshit. Whereas there's games on Steam that I've played for 30 or 40 hours already, and I paid $15 for the game.
There's value dollars too, though. Like there's somewhere you play for 300 hours. Like
that's astronomical. That's like beyond the average gamer though, because the average gamer is gonna grab a controller, sit down, play for anywhere from like an hour to a couple hours a day. And then after that, that starts getting to the more extreme. So that's going to be people playing like online or playing like Rocket League or something where you play like all weekend and stuff.
What I was getting at wasn't that some people play 300 hours. I'm saying that some experiences in games people feel are worth more, even though it's a shorter time. Like The Last of Us isn't a long game, but a lot of people would say that's worth $80 because the experiences in it are pretty damn good.
Yeah, but that's because again they're well thought out. It's well written, and the game was of a good enough length that it was worth that value.
Yeah. So
the problem that I have is that there's a lot of games that basically it's just a shooter fest with a shitty single player slapped onto the side of it that takes 5 hours to finish, and then they charge $80 for it, and it's like I don't.
I was just getting to the point where it's not dollars per hour anymore. It's like experiences and dollars.
Oh no, I'm not even trying to pin it on an hour. I'm talking about like just the quantity and quality of the game. That's why I'm saying like $80. As a value, I meant like there just shouldn't be a standard bar for all games.
It shouldn't
to
be
meet.
all games to be that price.
Yeah, exactly, and that's what your common developer, publisher, whatever. That's what they're shooting for all the time, and they need to get out of that mindset. And I would love to see EA sell a game brand new for $40 and actually make it a $40 game. Sure, don't put your top devs on it. Don't make it the biggest game you've ever made. Don't make it the flashiest one. But you can charge the less amount of money for it.
It's kind of funny.
And people will buy it, though, because it's like all of a sudden they see a game that's brand new, looks interesting, or at least it has a big title like Star Wars on it, and then they don't have to spend $80 on it.
There are actually a lot of games that aren't $80 at the market right now, but they're all like niche titles, or like things that aren't like big names.
It's almost like they're forced to sell for less because they know they won't sell.
Well, it's like
they're
stuff
just
like
smart.
Well, look at Ubisoft, and again, Ubisoft grinds my gears quite often, but
as usual.
As always. But there's a couple games like Child of Light and oh geez, what's that? Valiant Hearts both came out and were much smaller games and were much cheaper, and those are full games. Like you play them and you have a full experience, and you're like, this is awesome.
Now why can't other companies fucking do that?
Yeah, well,
they at least took a chance to make those smaller games, the cheaper games, and they've actually gotten a lot of awards for those games too.
They're quite well loved.
Yeah.
It's some companies are really dumb about it. Like say Capcom's Mega Man 9 or whatever the fuck it was, 9 to 10. Like they're just sure it's cheaper, sure it's like whatever, but it's too classic. Like you can't do that.
It's I know what you mean. Like even though it's not just the graphics and the music, it's the actual gameplay. Like they took abilities away from Mega Man, which is
like,
confusing.
That's just not but it's as long as they like you could take a chance to make like a 2D fucking Dark Souls if you wanted. And
that's the problem is that there's a lot of like the bigger companies saying, oh well, we can't launch a new IP because it costs too much. No, it costs too much because you're trying to make it the biggest, brightest, flashiest, most trailerific fucking game that you can, and still charge it $80. You want to try something new? Try it small first. Again, we'll go back to our prime examples of Borderlands 1 and Arkham Asylum. Those games came out. And they were fucking powerhouse games.
They started small.
They were started extremely small, and they were $40 brand new.
I don't know if you guys actually remember that, but like they decided to charge $20 cheaper for both those games.
I remember.
Like, right off the bat, and like that was actually really cool of them to do.
Part of the reason my older brother even picked up Arkham Asylum was because it was cheaper.
Yeah,
would never have played that game if it wasn't like, oh, this is not as expensive as
I know, right? It's like. Why don't companies can still do that? It's just they don't.
There isn't as much buyer's remorse after too, because it's like if EA sold us a game that was $80 and it sucked, Battlefront, then you're just like fuck EA, they took all my money. If they brought out Battlefront and it was $35, they'd be like, it sucked, but it was less than half the price of a normal game. Yeah. So I think that needs to be that change. I think that needs to happen before. DLC, episodic content, and just kind of the gaming industry as a whole can really come together and make a difference at that point.
Yeah. I, just going briefly back to episodic, like, I worry about what this... Again, I just feel like Square may or may not be setting a precedent for their future projects.
Yeah.
And maybe
That's
I'm
why I said
wrong.
I'm worried.
Maybe I'm wrong. Like and I know, like, again, we were talking about how it makes sense for stuff like Final Fantasy VII.
I don't think it makes sense for Final Fantasy VII. I think it makes zero sense because there's so many fucking mini games and random different shit you can do.
No, it makes sense for it
Sorry.
just because of the rabid fan base.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, well, I was just gonna say, like, I'm not convinced that the game is going to come out in a fashion that we think it's going to be at this point. Like, I honestly think that maybe I'm wrong, but I honestly wouldn't be surprised that they're gonna release episodically in like separate vignettes, so it's not even like the full game. Like, it'll be different
It's just
sections
memorable
of the game.
pieces of the game,
and then they'll
like a
leave
montage.
out. Well, exactly. That's I would not be surprised if it was like that. And then of course I'm sure they're gonna have transfer over of like items and experiences, shit like that. But they'll leave out some of them, like maybe leave out certain mini games or certain aspects of the game that you're like just small things that that'll really tickle your nostalgia, but they'll pick like the more iconic parts of the game and not have the full actual game, but just kind of like Final Fantasy VII Memories or something like that.
Nedu, why did you have to say that? Now I'm really scared.
I'm sorry.
Well, the thing is that game has never been one to be broken up. I didn't think it would be. Like, it doesn't have individual missions. It doesn't have like almost non sequitur areas. Like, every part is linked to another part.
About the only thing you could really break up would be Midgar from the rest of the game.
Yeah.
That would be the only
Like,
natural
the first
stopping point.
It's like
between-
first half, second half.
Yeah.
Well, it's like not even half. It's like first eighth, then the rest of the
and
game.
the rest of game. Like,
Yeah, so what? You know what? Even if they wanted to do that, like, that would have been probably better. It's like, give us Midgar, a nice meaty chunk of the game at the start there, and then you can work on the rest of it, like, whatever. Because, yeah, the main problem that I had with it is that it's like, okay, I understand you want to do the episodic thing because you're building it from the ground up again. This is a giant game, one of the most loved in the series, like, ever. So you want to do it right, you want to do it big and everything. That's fine as long as they don't screw with the episodic stuff. And I understand that they want to do it because they don't want to announce this game and then release it 8 years later.
Just like a certain other game.
Just like a certain other Final Fantasy game.
you know what? I'd be fine with that if it was done right. Like, I wouldn't care. Like,
Yeah, because that's basically what they would have to do, is because building this caliber of game from the ground up, like just redoing everything in it, would take forever. Like, we wouldn't see this game until 2021, basically. And but they're going to do episodic because they want to release a chunk of it every once in a while to kind of keep people in it. As long as those chunks are big enough and you can sit there and grind on your levels and do all this stuff in it, that's fine. I'm worried about what you said, is that if they do decide to do it that way, where it's just like, hey, remember when this happened? Play that scene. Hey, remember when this happened? Now you get to play that scene. It's like, no, that's not what we fucking want. I want to play the game, not the pieces you chose for me to play out of the game.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, God knows time will tell, and I don't think they're going to do that. I mean, again, Final Fantasy 15, I don't think they're going to do episodic. That'd be insane. And same with
they're
like,
already almost out.
They're
not.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, like, it just I'm just saying this like for future projects that I at least know about, right? Like Final Fantasy 15 and Dragon Quest. Oh my God, which one is it now?
Oh, that one looks
11.
good, actually.
Yeah, 11.
Yeah, it looks super good.
I'm really excited for that. And I don't think that one's going to be like episodic either. But I mean, I'm just wondering what their future releases for their major properties that they're known for will look like. I mean, what happens if we get like next Tomb Raider? Maybe it'll be an episodic Tomb Raider game. So I don't know.
I don't mind it if it makes sense.
But that's exactly it. Like that's if it makes sense, if they do it well, and if they don't pull like a hitman on like fans and stuff like that, hopefully it'll be good. But I don't know. I'll have to wait and see, as it always is.
Final Fantasy makes zero sense to make episodic. Like,
no.
Every time you pick it up, how long does it take you to figure out how to do everything again? Like, it doesn't make sense.
And again, that was my example before. It was just like, if companies start doing that with not all of their games, but a lot of the games, a lot of the big AAA titles, if that becomes the common thing, you're just gonna be fucked, because you're not gonna have, it's like, well, this month or next month they're releasing 5 of these games I was playing, and they're these different chapters, so you have to catch up on all those games, learn how to play them all again, because it's been 3 months since you played them. Like, it's not going to fucking work.
But there's certain games that you can pick up and play and not have
Mario.
to think about too much. Like Mario, shooters. Shooters generally have
like
similar
if
controls
they,
throughout.
Like
those types of games you can split up, but like you can't split up something where you have like a full full system of like magicite and random shit,
Well,
like development trees. Like how do you remember
Final
your development
Fantasy
tree?
prime example. Another one is Devil May Cry. Devil May Cry would be horrible to split up because learning, like working your way back into the finesse of those controls and the combo system and everything like that is just it just wouldn't be fun anymore.
But there are a lot of games that would lend itself to it, like short games, like a lot of indie style games. Like
Adventure
you can make
games.
a lot of those. Like things are intuitive. You pick it up and you figure it out in like 5-10 minutes. Like those types of games, good episodic. Everything else, like especially JRPGs, I don't know what the fuck they were thinking. Like it's just a gong show. How could you possibly make that into?
Well, not just that. It's just like for some of those games, I mean, especially JRPG ones, you're gonna be sitting there reading for an hour before you even start the fucking game because you're gonna be confused as to which character's which because there's all these like chaotic, weird storylines going on with all these characters that look so samey and everything. It's just, you're not gonna know who is who.
They just need like a 3-minute video montage, and there you go.
Maybe they'll have an encyclopedia like Final Fantasy 13.
Oh god, that encyclopedia.
Yeah, like, and then, Western RPGs, like, could you imagine a Fallout game that would be broken up? Like, sure, the basic controls might be easy, but those games are pretty complex.
You wouldn't remember where all your skill trees are and stuff.
Well, exactly. You wouldn't remember your
you
skill
wouldn't
trees.
remember where half your shit is, or how to build anything, or like how to craft weapons, or like it would just totally. Like if you're playing, like there's so many games where if I was playing it and then you just came in the room and you yanked it out of my hand and you said, "All right, you get this controller back in 3 months," I'd be like, "All right, whatever, I'm done then. I'm not fucking playing this game anymore." Because and that's again, I'm totally worried about that because I don't want that to become the norm because that's what's going to happen. I'm going to experience the 1/8 or 1/6 or 1/3 of a whole bunch of games and then probably never finish them.
That's what I'm worried about with Revelations 2.
The big sacrifice there has to be like you can't do as much customization in your skill trees and stuff. Like you have to make it simplified in a certain aspect.
Yeah, and then limiting what you can do in those chapters too. I mean, that's going to be a whole other concept too of like how to
if you want it
properly.
to be successful episodic, you have to make it so it's playable individually and as a whole.
Yeah.
So then you have to make it so you don't have to reiterate every single control scheme every time. So you have to make the control scheme simple enough. But you also have to make it so that people remember things right off the bat. So have like a video or something show that whatever happened or things like that. But you also have to not be as customizable. You can't have like in-depth skill trees, in-depth like magicite. You can't like raise your chocobos halfway in one game and raise the rest of them like the other way. Like it's ridiculous. You have to really limit what you can do. But I'm not saying it's bad. Like you can make good episodic content if you're if you're smart about it. So you have to know.
And it has to be a game type too. Yeah. It's not just about being smart about it. Because no matter how smart
you can make a JRPG work. It just wouldn't be compelling. I feel like.
It just wouldn't. And that's the thing is it's what it comes down to. It's just like don't do it. Please just don't do it.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I was thinking about this the other day too. Like I was like thinking about game properties that I don't see that I'm, just for me personally, right? That I miss that may benefit from episodic stuff. And I was like, okay, well, if they were to make a really solid episodic Metroid game, because again, like that's a series that, granted, they're coming out with another one, unfortunately in a fashion that I'm not super pleased about.
Nobody is.
I don't know.
I'm so pleased. No, sorry.
I'm sure there are some people. I'm sure I don't know them. But I'm sure that they're out there, and I'm just like, and again, I'm also going to play the waiting game. Who knows? Maybe I'm completely wrong. I doubt it, but if I am, thank God.
Yeah.
But like something like that, if they release like an episodic, like a Metroid prologue or whatever, right, where it's just like Samus in a very short and small situation, and they kind of keep releasing episodes where the game gets slightly more compelling as you go on, like that'd be super interesting. I would love it much, much more if it was a full Metroid game. But again, like if it's one of those properties that's risky, and I guess that's what they're doing with Resident Evil, right? But they feel like they didn't do it in the best way. While if they did it something like each area is like a completely different area, but it still has the same kind of gameplay, or they're like vignettes, like if it felt like somewhat complete after I ended it, rather than it's just like, now you're cut off by the next episode.
Yeah, if it's like just cut off, there's a screen that's like by the next episode.
And that's kind of the other problem with it too, is that's why it has to be like a certain type of game. Not only being a certain type of game, but it has to be done right too, is that you are literally just cutting this game up. So your normal way of storytelling can't work. you have to have it set up in all these tidy little chapters that always wrap up what's happening and everything. And that type of thing just doesn't work for certain games.
Yeah.
Because if you're playing a Metroid game and you're like hammering through and you see the map and the map is almost all covered, it's just like you almost get that disappointment. It's like, okay, well, I'm almost done this one then. Because when you buy a full game, you don't know what's coming up. You don't know what's happening. You don't know if that is the little planet. You don't know where you're going next or anything. With this one, it's like once you see that you're almost covered that map or you're almost near this guy that you were supposed to kill since the start of the story or something like that, you know that chapter's coming to an end, and it's just like, okay,
there's a certain
it just takes the piss out of it.
Yeah,
like,
there's a certain element of mystery that would be gone from a Metroid game, which really, those games tend to really strive on mystery and uncertainty of what's coming next.
So I don't know. There we go. Conflict. I don't like it. I don't think they should fucking do it. And Telltale, keep doing what you're doing, because you're doing awesome at it. But
I mean, like I feel like I feel like it can work in certain situations. I feel like, again, you have to be
There's
smart.
There's definitely sacrifices, and you have to be smart with it.
But
which I don't believe people will be.
Yeah, and so far in some of these situations where they have done episodic content and not like, and not something like Life is Strange or Telltale or games, like they've shown that they haven't been, which is depressing. But again, only time will tell, right, guys? So sad. Okay, well, we should probably wrap up soon, so I guess we can go to what we've been doing this week.
Okay. I just played some more Rocket League, and what else was I playing? Pocket Mortys. Catching more of them.
Yeah, I really need to try it.
What else? Oh, right, yeah, my stream that I did was I got to play Punch Club.
Oh, that game was weird.
I don't know. I still have to play more of it. I think you have to really get into it too.
Yeah.
I love the look of it. I love Tiny Build. I love basically anything Tiny Build's been doing so far, because they really nail that retro feel, and I love their graphics. Their music is absolutely amazing. I think it's only done by one guy in their little troop of guys there. So yeah, I love most of the stuff they've been doing. This one feels more like a cell phone game though, because it is very disconnected. Like, you sit back, you click on things to do certain things, you keep his stats going,
and then you wait,
and you just kind of earn stats to build up your fighting ability and everything. But it's very hands off. Like, you're really not fighting, you're not really doing anything, you're just kind of telling them where to go and when to go and stuff like that. So I have to play it a bit more, see if it gets a bit more involved. But from what I've seen so far, I love the look of it. I love it just has hilarious fucking movie references in and everything. So they did a good job with that. The music is excellent. And yeah, it's just a really pretty game. But as far as gameplay goes, I don't know. It's kind of a miss right now for me. But I will be playing some more of it just to figure it out. But yeah, right, Gary, you whispered to me there that yes, we did.
Yeah, we did a stream.
We did a stream. You can go watch it on Twitch on ayvonline.com through their Twitch channel. I think it's AYB TV. We played, I think, 2.5 hours of Hammerwatch. Yeah, which was
that was fun.
That
was fucking amazing. We are definitely going to revisit that one, because we only beat the first world and boss or whatever, so there's a lot more of that game to go. And it was tons of fun. Just some classic, just top down dungeon crawling.
We're on the ropes quite a few times.
Some gorgeous 8-bit tasty little graphics and stuff. So it was a lot of fun, and we will definitely be revisiting that one. So Hammerwatch was another one. So
let's
Go
see.
ahead.
What I'm trying to think. What the hell did I honestly barely played any games this week.
Sounds like you should finish Metal Gear Solid 5.
At some point.
Sounds like you should play the Bloodborne DLC.
Yeah, I'm gonna. Oh my god, leave me alone, both of you. At some point, I'll finish both.
Do you still have Steins Gate?
I do have Steins Gate. Yes, I do.
Just kidding.
I actually did play Blade and Soul. Because that went free to play.
I heard the wait times on that were atrocious.
They were. I didn't play it for 4 days when it first was released.
Yeah,
wait time just ended.
Because I was talking to my other buddy, and I'm just like, oh yeah, I forgot that came out. I was gonna check it out the other night. It's like, yeah, good luck getting on it.
Yeah,
you had to wait 4 hours to it was like 4 hours in the queue to get into the game.
Holy crap!
So they're updating their servers, they're making it better.
Yeah.
He played it basically the second day after launch day, and he was just like, it's insane. Like it's almost impossible to get in to play it. So
yeah, the wait times were bonkers. Like I didn't play it for quite a few days. Anytime the wait time was just like. It was like, oh, it's 60 minutes. I'm like, no. And then I'd like tab away and do something else. I came back and it was like 84 minutes. I'm like, oh. Like, well, that's
it's like, did people
should be escalating?
I'm not sure what happened here, but I don't like that. So the only time I did play it, I had to wait, like, I guess I had a wait time of like 20 minutes. So I played it twice now. And those times I was like, I can wait that long, I guess. So
and how was it?
I mean, it's okay. It's interesting.
Traversal.
Well, yeah, I mean the traversal. Granted, and you first start out, your traversal's not that exciting. Like you've got a cool dash, and then you can glide through the air. But that's about it. There's more stuff later on. They add on to the dashes and the glides and stuff like that. But at this point, the most interesting aspect of the game is definitely the combat system. Because it's very active, and I'm not that far in. Like I chose an assassin type character, but you've got this couple active skills, and you really have to pay attention. For example, you've got a substitution technique where if you have to press like the 2 key, and the character will charge up. But if the enemy doesn't hit you, like it doesn't hit you within that window, you'll completely miss it, and you'll also have that. Ability has to cool down, so you won't be able to use it for a little bit. But if you time it right, then you disappear and reappear behind them. Then you have a context sensitive. It's your regular stab attack. However, when you're behind your enemy, that stab will turn into a specific stun
like
jab,
a backstab or something. Yeah.
Exactly. And then when you'll do that, you can stab them and stun them, or you can plant a bomb and knock them down. And then there's a context sensitive stomp move you can use. So there's a lot of stuff like that. And that game, from what I can understand, the combat system gets even more and more complex as you go along. Mm-hmm. So that's basically the best and most exciting part of the game. The game itself, I mean, I can't remember when it came out in Korea, but it came out quite a few years ago.
2012, I think.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah,
that's why I think the servers have been so bonkers too, is because everybody's been like chomping at the bit to play this.
For sure. Yeah, I saw that in 2012 and I wanted to play it, but
yeah, well, exactly. I remember.
I've given up on that.
No, I mean, the reason I wanted to play that game for so long was just because the combat system alone seems so fascinating, and the combat system is great. Everything else feels super antiquated. Like it's an old MMO, and it feels like it. Like it's stuff like things like Guild Wars and like hell, even Star Wars: The Old Republic has changed, and WildStar and stuff like that. Like have done better than this game because not either they've come out after it or they have iterated upon themselves and improved things. While this game clearly hasn't.
I think what happened for me was like Terra came out afterwards and like was localized way faster and it just ended up like stealing its thunder.
Oh, for sure. And that's understandable because again, it's also a very active combat system. I would say this system is better. Again, it's early because I played a lot more of Terra. This system so far seems like has a lot more potential than the combat system that Terra had. Mm-hmm. But again, like just like you say, like that game took so long to come out for a lot of people who aren't that interested, or like they've just like, well, we've already played a really cool Asian style action MMO. Like, why do I need to play this? So I don't know. I'm gonna give it a little bit more time. Then I might just go back to Star Wars: The Old Republic.
Star Wars.
Besides that, finally watched some Dimension W. That show's pretty sweet. I'm gonna watch more of that.
It's got like a really good old school Cowboy Bebop sort of feel and Trigun sort of feel.
Yeah, absolutely. It feels like I'm watching one of the good animes from the 90s. So that's been pretty sweet. So that's cool. So yeah, that's interesting, and it seems like again, only 2 episodes in, but they're slowly introducing aspects of the world like each episode. So that's nice. Like I'm hoping that we don't get like a massive, they just do a bunch of cool stuff and then all of a sudden massive info dump. Yeah, like that
just wait for
kills. Oh, we'll see. Fingers crossed, right? I know I watched something else that was kind of interesting. I guess I finally watched Spectre. I hate to say it, I didn't love that movie.
You didn't like Spectre?
No,
I
loved it.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, maybe I don't know. Like, I mean, you guys know I'm not the hugest Bond fan, so maybe that's it.
Are you sure you didn't watch Casper instead?
I watched Casper.
That's a much worse movie.
I watched Casper, and you're like, well, this doesn't seem like James Bond at all. Why is he a ghost?
Why is he a ghost? And why does he smile all the
Why
time?
is he smiling all the time? This is stupid.
Who's
So-
his kid friend?
yeah, exactly. I don't understand any of this. Nah, I don't know. Like that movie just didn't hit it for me for some odd reason. But again, I'm not the hugest James Bond fan. Like I always find James Bond movies fascinating. I always watch them. But like I like both Casino Royale and Skyfall quite a bit better than Spectre.
All right.
Also, wasn't a fan of the intro, like the stylistic intro for this one.
Oh
No?
I loved it.
Yeah, I
It
don't
wasn't
know.
as good as like Skyfall.
Well, I know
It was still pretty
Skyfall's your
good.
favorite though, so you've
Yeah.
already stated multiple times that Skyfall's your favorite intro for James Bond. So
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know. So I don't know. For some reason, it just didn't hit it for me. But then also all of the comic book TV shows have returned this. Well, not all of them, but a lot of them have returned this week. So Agent Carter came back, and that show's cheesy, but I freaking love it. Like, it's great because Peggy Carter and Jarvis, who's the butler, right, who's Stark's butler, who Jarvis' computer is based off of, right? They have a real reverse James Bond / Moneypenny thing going, and it's kind of amazing. Plus, they made this Jarvis even more hilarious, and you get to meet his wife, and she's like just super weird and hilarious too. And like Haley Atwell has just like basically has absolute command of that show, and she's just really become that character, and she does a fantastic job. So even though that show's kind of corny and not the greatest, the individual characters are so much fun to watch. It makes it totally worth it. Then I guess I've talked enough about Flash and Arrow at this point, but Legends of Tomorrow actually started, which is I don't know. I mean, it's not bad, but it's not good. It's like basically I've seen Flash and Arrow both be really good and really bad, and right now this show seems to be in a happy medium of those. However, I do really like I can't remember the actor's name, but the guy who plays Captain Cold, he's the guy from Prison Break.
Oh, okay.
Right? And he did, and I actually really like him in The Flash. Like, he did the thing that I never thought was possible, was make me actually think Captain Cold was cool, because he's never, ever been cool, except, he's cold, hot puns. But, like, he's never been an interesting character. This is the first time they've actually managed to make him interesting, so. So, yeah, I don't know. Keep watching those shows. That's what I do.
I fired up my PS3 and been playing PS3 games.
Ah, nice.
Good stuff.
It's kind of fun.
Are you finally getting back to some of the like JRPGs you haven't played yet, or what?
Yeah, actually, I just downloaded a newer one. It just came out like last month.
Oh, which game?
It's called Au Densetsu, or Au Senki, sorry. It's like Heroes War, the World Conquest. And it's like a visual novel, like SRPG sort of thing. But it's, instead of having like grids and stuff, it's more about like troop management and like fund allocation and stuff like that. So it's a different type of strategy that's interesting. And yeah, it's
So do you fight like big battles because you have like groups of like troops to
yeah, essentially
dispose of, or-
essentially you go around the world and collect the world's heroes.
Oh, okay.
That have all been turned into cute anime girls.
Of course they do.
Of course.
So yeah, it's fun. I like it.
Neat.
Yeah,
I like that it's at least different. You're not just like another troop of like 3 cute anime girls like attacking people with ridiculous
I
explosions.
just got Christopher Columbus. And
So it's like real
I'm working
world
on
stuff,
Alexander the Great. It's all
weird.
like the arrows are all messed up too.
So wait, when you pick up Christopher Columbus and he's a cute anime girl, does he turn into a cute anime Christopher Columbus, or does he turn into like a realistic looking Christopher Columbus?
He's cute anime Christopher Columbus.
Oh my god.
Doesn't wear pants.
Oh my god.
I'll show you some pictures later.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
It's based on like a porn game, so
Go figure.
yeah.
Oh boy.
But they released the all ages version on PS3, and it's actually pretty good. Yeah, the characters are really good so far. There's 72 playables.
So making me think of Fate, like the Fate series, and that used to be based off of porn.
Yeah,
right?
there's Arthur too in that.
Yeah. What the hell? They're
What
just
the hell? Might as well.
yeah. Anywho, neat.
But yeah, some of those games are actually really good. So it's this one I'm enjoying. It's better than I thought it would be.
Cool.
So
Very cool.
It's good. You got your money's worth.
yeah, and then I've been playing what's it called? Panzer Waltz, which is like Kantai collection with the ship girls, but with tank girls.
Now I think that was a thing before though, and they just based a game on it, or was it not even a thing?
No, it like there's an anime called Girls in Panzer, which is entirely different.
Oh, okay.
Because what's better than the girls in the Panzer?
Oh my god.
There was like an airplane one like that too, where they're all dressed up like
Strike
World
Witches.
War II.
Oh yeah, Strike Witches. That's actually interesting anime.
I've heard it was good.
It's like not good per se, but it's interesting.
Okay, I can't bring myself to
Interesting,
watch
weird,
shows.
interesting, funny, interesting.
It's entertaining.
Okay.
Entertaining and stupid, but very entertaining. But yeah, and that's about all I did. Watch some more anime. Work.
Work.
The end.
Oh my god.
So,
yeah, I hear ya.
All right. Well, that's about it. So yeah, just a whole lot of rage about DLC and episodic content and stuff like that. So please leave some comments below on your thoughts on this, because holy shit, I hate it, but you know, obviously there's other people with other opinions on it.
DLC, I don't like it.
DLC can
like
be done right,
either,
even if it's done right. I'm still not a fan, but still, it's a thing that is here and it exists. And as a gamer, you have to, you know.
Yeah.
I think it's just up to the really smart developers to make really good stuff.
Yeah, and that's the thing.
Like Far Cry Blood Dragon's supposed to be really good, right?
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah,
That's a standalone game,
Yeah.
but it's DLC.
There you go.
Something like that. Yeah,
Prime example of good DLC. But anyways, yeah, so leave that in the comments below about what you think of episodic content, what you think of DLC, what you think of Square Enix and what they're doing with Final Fantasy VII or Hitman. Were you a person that pre-ordered Hitman and then got fucked over
Shafted.
by it? Yeah, so yeah, let us know in the comments below there. But yeah, until the next episode, don't forget to
Like,
comment,
and subscribe.
KitaCast out.